This week's episode of Life Planning 101 originally aired in 2024. Please enjoy. Welcome to Life Planning 101, brought to you by Smart Money Group and Kennedy Financial Services in Eastland, Texas. Tune in every week as we share important information to help you and your family live life on purpose. Insurance, investments, legacy and tax planning, and much more. All covered now on Life Planning 101.
Good morning and welcome into Life Planning 101. My name is Angela Robinson with Smart Money Group and Kennedy Financial Services here in the big town of Eastland, Texas, where we are a life planning firm that helps people live life on purpose. What does that mean? Well, it's just the opposite of living by default, right? Going through the motions and things just happen to you rather than you getting empowered, having the information at hand to make good decisions, wise decisions about your future, about your family's future, so that things can move forward on purpose. And here we are. It is October. Happy fall, everyone. Or I should say, since I'm from Texas, happy fall, y'all. Anyway, it is October, which means it's Estate Planning Awareness Month. I cannot tell you how important a great estate plan is. You know, we've always had a saying in Texas that it used to be a friendly place to die. And it really still is a pretty friendly place to die. And there's a lot of other states that we work in that are pretty friendly places to die. But I will also say this, that when you don't have your estate house in order, it can take months, if not years, to settle an estate. And most of it's just simply because trying to find assets, trying to find out how they're titled. Companies are sticklers on how things need to be retitled and what they need to be able to do that. Medallion guarantee stamps, for example, are just a beast to be able to find anymore because these companies are getting more and more difficult on what they'll actually medallion or not medallion. And, you know, a lot of times that we just think that our house is in order because we have a will. Well, that might not be completely the truth. In fact, I think we wrote an article on that. Chris could probably post that in our newsletter as a reference to go back and read this week. By the way, shout out to Chris. He does an awesome job. I'm just telling you, he is like the ultimate Mr. Organization when it comes to all things Life Planning 101, weekly life lessons. He pulls everything together and delivers great information to the families that we serve each and every week. Just appreciate all you do behind the scenes. You don't get kudos enough for that, and I know that, but we really appreciate you. But I'm sure he could find this and get it out there because it is important, okay? Your estate plan and understanding, do you really have an estate plan in order that is going to help your family after you're gone? Or a bigger question is, are they going to be cussing you in your grave? And so that's what we're here to talk about today is your estate plan. And specifically, we're going to focus on a will-based plan versus a trust-based plan, okay? And a lot of people may say, well, I don't need to listen to this. Just the idea of a trust is complicated. Everything, our lives are simple. We don't have a lot. I can't imagine that it would take much. Well, I hear that a whole lot. And I'm going to tell you this, that 9 times out of 10, the families that we serve do need a trust. And the reason that they need a trust is so that their families are not cussing them when they're or throwing rocks in their grave when they're 6 feet under. So we got some great information today, and you're not going to want to miss it. And here's what I would say. You know, we are a society that tends to overcomplicate things. And I think we overcomplicate things in one of two ways. We overcomplicate things, first of all, because we are so dedicated to something. We become so motivated to do something that we feel like we have to really just go at it 100%, 1000%. Man, I'm guilty, right? Like I'll say, okay, all right, I'm going to get the best shape of my life. And then I kill myself in the first 3 days and I ache for 5 days. And then it takes a long time to get motivated to get going again, right? And we do this as losing weight as a whole, right? We overcomplicate it. I mean, think about it. If you want to lose weight, there's really 2 things you need to remember, right? Eat less, exercise more. Basic rules. It seems to work. But yet, we read books, we watch videos, we purchase all these programs, we do all this. I would like to know how much money Americans spend in January on trying to lose weight. And then how much of that actually continues on, right? So we tend to overcomplicate things when we get excited, but then we also overcomplicate things when we do nothing. We think that we're not. We think that by doing nothing, that everything will just be okay and work itself out. But in reality, sometimes when you do nothing, that can create more complication than anything. So right here on Life Planning 101 today, we're here to help you live life on purpose and not have rocks thrown on your grave when you die. You're not going to want to miss it when we come back. Welcome back to Life Planning 101. It is Estate Planning Awareness Month, and we are talking about a will-based versus a trust-based plan. Because let's get real, just the idea of having a trust sounds complicated, right? But is it? And the truth is that not having a trust-based plan in a lot of situations can create significantly, when I say significantly, I mean significantly more complication than having one. And then again, this isn't always the case. It isn't always the case, sometimes because it's not needed, and sometimes because just because you have a trust doesn't mean that you've actually have a plan. You actually just created more mess if you don't do the follow-up that's necessary with the trust. So what I want to do today is I want to break it down. I want to look under the hood because, hey, we work in a lot of great states. Texas, we've always talked about, it's a friendly place to die. If you're going to die, die in Texas. Die in Texas with your estate in Texas. And that is so true. But anymore, assets are getting harder and harder and harder to get retitled because we're just an intertwining of all these different states. And just because it's Texas doesn't mean that that asset is actually in Texas. It might be a company that's based outside of that, and they want all this information. They want a medallion stamp. And oh, by the way, that medallion stamp is very difficult to get in a lot of cases. It can be really difficult for your heirs, for your spouse. And that's only after they found everything that you owned, by the way. So, one of the things that we're always talking to people about is you can either leave your kids and your spouse a mess, or you can have everything work out very smoothly for them when you pass away because you're doing the hard work. And I think at the end of the day, that's kind of what you're looking at when you're looking at a will. You're leaving everything for your heirs to do, or you're looking at a trust where you've kind of tidied up the loose ends and there's really not much to do at the end of the day. So what I want to do is I want to look under the hood with you, okay? Because it doesn't mean that a trust-based plan is for everyone. And there are some downsides to it, and I want to get to that. But first, I want to start with a will, because I want to start with what the process would look like if your assets were to pass through the terms of your will, okay? You might think that all of your assets would, first of all, you might think that all of your assets would pass through the terms of your will. Not true, okay? Your will acts more like a vacuum cleaner. You got to move the heavy furniture out of the way to vacuum up the rug, okay? And your assets that pass via your will are really like those pieces of dirt on your rug. Now, what am I talking about, okay? You have most likely a lot of what's called contract property. And contract property is something that has a specific titling or a beneficiary designation that supersedes the terms of your will. Okay, example, let's say that you have an IRA, all right, and it names specific beneficiaries. Or you have a bank account that has a payable on death designation that names specific beneficiaries. Well, in either of those cases, it doesn't matter what your will says. It doesn't matter at all how you wanted your assets to pass via your will. They're going to pass the way that you have them on those designations, okay? So unintentionally, we've actually seen people disinherit specific children because they put one child as a beneficiary on the bank account. They say, oh, you just take care of everything. Well, they can't because of gifting maximums, and it would upset their own apple cart with their estate planning, and it's very difficult. So even though you think you've set everything up right and easy, you haven't. You've actually ended up complicating things more. And we see that a lot. Another thing is You might have an account, and checking and savings and CDs are notorious for this as well, that you name what is called joint with rights of survivorship. And this could be with a spouse, it could be with a business partner, it could be with a child, whatever. Well, it doesn't matter what your will says. It doesn't matter if that's really in a company document. If it's owned joint with rights or survivorship, it's exactly what it implies. When one person dies, the other owners have rights to the survivorship, meaning it passes to the surviving owners on that account. And again, that could be very problematic if that is a child, and you were intending that money to go three ways or whatnot. So a lot of people don't understand that your titling and your beneficiary designations supersede what your will says. Your will just kind of picks up all the rest of the pieces. Okay. Now, I digress. After the heavy lifting of that contracted property is out of the way, your will is going to pick up those pieces, and those pieces need to be itemized. Yes, every single one of them will need to be found, listed out, valued, and will go through probate. This is a process that can be very simple and take hardly any time and any money. And it is a process that can be very cumbersome, and it can take years, and it can be very expensive. So I think the question most people have is, well, where would my estate fall, right? What would happen, right? And I think a common misconception is this. People think this, man, we're just simple people. Our lives are simple. We don't have a lot. I can't imagine that it would take much. Well, have you ever heard the phrase, it's all relative? It really is. It's all relative. I mean, as Americans, heck, if you're listening to Life Planning 101, my guess is that you're comfortable. You are middle class to middle upper class, and your lives are comfortable. Well, that means that you probably don't have as simple of an estate as you think you do. It's relative. It's simple compared to what you would imagine some people would have, I'm sure. But, ... here's the facts. We work with a lot of farm and ranch families. We work with a lot of good old boys and a lot of humble business owners. And they all say this same thing. And it couldn't be further from the truth. Okay? So if you don't believe me, I have a little exercise for you, and it's going to be a lot of fun. I want you to get a pen and a piece of paper, and I wanted you to start making a list of everything you own. That involves your cash. Where's your cash? Your actual cash at? I know you have cash, right? Your personal possessions, your guns, your livestock, your equipment, your jewelry, your art. And don't forget, as you're making a list of everything you own, put a value on these things. Oh, by the way, you don't have a value, or you don't know the value, then it's going to have to be appraised. And by the way, if your estate may need appraisals. You just don't know unless you have your whole team has told you what that means, because in some cases it does matter, in some cases it doesn't. Your bank accounts, you notice the S on the end, and CDs, and each one, by the way, each one that you have, each bank account that you have, each CD that you have, your investment accounts, each one, your credit cards, each one, every online account that you have, Amazon, emails, PayPal, etc. Okay? You need to have these all listed out. Each annuity, each life insurance policy. Do you have gold? Do you have other precious metals? Do you have Bitcoin? What about your business? How is your business owned? Is there an entity? Is there multiple entities? How's the land under your business owned? How's all that laid out? Your properties. Challenge. Find all your deeds. Every single one of them. Your minerals. Find your deeds. Your homes. Find your deeds. Safety deposit box. Or 2. Anything else you own? Right? That's a laundry list. So if you're not making this list, your executor is, by the way. And not only are they making the list, They're having to find these things because they may not even know they exist. And I will tell you this. We've worked with a lot of successful people that just their success doesn't happen in a vacuum. It happens over time, and they build their wealth. And we worked with one family, and it has been 12 years now, and we are still uncovering assets, finding assets that we didn't know existed because they just forgot that they were there. So think about that. If that was the kids trying to probate that estate, holy smokes, right? To find all of this is an absolute nightmare because it doesn't all just live on your tax return in one place where you can see it all. A lot of people can't even find their deeds. They don't even know where they are at all. They may have them in 3 different safety deposit boxes. Oh, by the way, those may be locked down if you were to die. This is really important. So this is a great exercise for you to do to be able to actually gather everything up. And I like to think of it like, okay, you have one toy box and you put everything in one little toy box. Get it back in one toy box. It's going to do you and your family a huge favor, okay? But now wait, you are not done. Now I want you to go through that list and look at how each of these assets are titled. And don't guess, and not what you want them to be. How are they actually titled? Meaning, how are they owned? Is it in your name? Is it in your name with your spouse? Is it a community property item? Is it joint with rights of survivorship? Is it owned by LLC? Is it owned by an S Corp? What are these different things, right? And that's really important. And the last question is, do you know for certain what would happen to each of these assets when you die? And if your answer is, well, they'll just pass via my estate or my will, go back to the beginning of the conversation we had, that might not be true, okay? This is a really good little practice to get a taste of the homework that your executor will have to do when you die. And then I want you to go back up and I want you to ask yourself, is it really that simple? When we come back on Life Planning 101, we're going to come back out of all the details here and we're going to go back to that will-based versus trust-based plan and what is right for you. You're not going to want to miss it. Welcome back to Life Planning 101. My name is Angela Robinson with Smart Money Group and Kennedy Financial Services. It is Estate Planning Awareness Month. So, reminds me, our conversation today, a will-based plan versus a trust-based plan. You know, nobody wants complication. That's not what we're after. And it reminds me of the story of a mother whose daughter was away at college and her mail was starting to pile up at the house. And so she called her and her daughter said, well, why don't you just open up something and see what it is? And so mom unsealed an envelope and it says, your account has insufficient funds. And the daughter said, well, that's got to be a mistake. I still have plenty of checks left. That was from Patty Happy of Granville, New York. And I love Reader's Digest. So it was really good. But doesn't that explain it? I mean, we laugh at that. We laugh at the ignorance of a college student, but I think a lot of us have a lot of ignorance when it comes to our estate planning because we just think things are just going to be simple. Everything's just going to be okay. And I'm going to tell you that your kids and your spouse could be throwing rocks on your grave if you don't take care of things in the right way. And that means a will is not enough. We wrote an article about that a long time ago. I encourage you to go back and read that. Because it is really important that you do more than just get your will in place to help your family. And today we're talking about a will or a trust, and it's the same way. If you have a living trust, it's not enough. You have to do some of your homework. So if you haven't been listening to the show, go back and listen. It is a great show. We gave you a taste of what your executor would have to go through if you were to pass away. And, they would have to get these assets, learn how they're titled, get valuations on things. And then the probate starts. And then they could be the process of, working with the attorney, potentially going to court, paying any creditors. And then the fun part, in which we haven't got to. And if that wasn't fun already. And the fun part is that you get to close down accounts as an executor, retitle everything. Oh, wait a minute. Retitle everything twice. Because first, everything that goes through the probate is retitled to the estate. And then the second retitling actually comes when it is distributed to the spouse, the kids, etc. And to add pain to misery, not every state is a friendly place to die. Believe it or not, Wyoming is one of those places. They have a pretty hefty charge on a probated estate, and the attorney and the state get paid a lot. So the bottom line is that it is not always simple. So if you actually go through this process and you're thinking about your estate and it becomes like a cumbersome cloud of stress in your mind, then I want you to think about what your heirs and your spouse would be thinking about. And I want you to be thinking, okay, I need to talk to someone and find out what is a way that we can avoid that and try to make things simpler. And a lot of times, probate can simply be avoided. All this can be avoided just by making sure your contract property is set up correctly. We talked about that earlier. Your beneficiary designations, your payable on death designations. Now, this isn't fail-proof because it doesn't always help accomplish your wishes in what-if situations. For example, let's say you name 3 beneficiaries and one of them dies. Now what, right? Does that actually accomplish your wishes? So you really need to be working through all of this holistically with someone to find out your wishes first and then back into it, okay, on what can be done. And this brings us up to a living trust, okay? Now, trusts in general get a bad rap, and rightfully so, because in my opinion, they're misused a lot, a whole lot. However, if a living trust is used correctly, it can alleviate a lot of heartache for a grieving family. So here's the long and short of it, okay? Your living trust, in essence, if you have a trust-based plan, becomes your will. And your will simply is what's called a pour-over will that states anything I forgot to put into the trust, let's do it, okay? And then your living trust is going to dictate how your assets pass when you die. Now, this is helpful because before you die, if you title anything to the name of the living trust or put a designation on it to go to the living trust, that can avoid probate. And that means that laundry list of finding assets, documents, retitling, all that becomes minuscule. It also means you got everything in one toy box. You got it all ready, so you might as well just keep it compiled for whomever is your trustee and your executor down the road. Pretty nice. All that heavy lifting is done. Now, here's the downside. There's some things to think about. If you own a living trust, this is where people, they don't retitle things into the trust. Well, they didn't solve anything. Or they go continue to buy assets and they don't title them to the trust. They still title them in their name or a joint account if they're married. Well, that doesn't do anything either. You need to be putting everything into your trust. And a good trust document is going to make that seamless. So there is no difference between you purchasing or financing an item and the trust purchasing or financing an item. But a bad trust can make that very, very difficult. The other thing to note is trusts. There's all kinds of trusts, but a living trust, nothing is going to change in regard to your taxes, your asset protection, your privacy. All of these are misnomers of things that are benefits to that trust. They're just not. And another thing is the cost. So interestingly, a lot of people believe that if I set up a trust, it's very expensive. And it can be. Attorneys are all different, but majority of the time, it's not significantly more than a will-based plan. And if a trust is warranted, then it's going to be significantly less expensive to administer and implement the probate of that same estate, because that is time that your heirs are going to be spending doing all that work. So really, the primary benefit is to put everything in one place for your executor and your trustees and make it as efficient and as timely as possible. In other words, I like to say, if you're setting up a trust-based plan and you're funding it now, it's like going through probate in advance, which is a lot easier because there's a lot of steps that you get to avoid. And you're doing it because you love your family. You're doing it because you don't want them throwing rocks on your grave. So the bottom line here is that it doesn't mean that a trust-based plan is right for you, but it doesn't mean that it's not. And you don't need to assume anything. We are in an ever-increasing complex world. Would you agree? Even in Texas, where it's the friendliest state to die, like I said, my advice to you is to get help, look at your holistic situation, and really determine what's best for you and really what's best for your spouse and heirs, because they're the ones dealing with this at the end of the day. My name is Angela Robinson with Smart Money Group and Kennedy Financial Services. Be sure to visit us online at www.kennedy-financial.com, where you can find this week's write-up on estate planning and everything else by subscribing to our weekly Life Lessons newsletter. And be sure to join us right here next week on Life Planning 101. Until then, God bless you, and don't forget to live life on purpose.
Thank you for joining us for Life Planning 101, brought to you by Smart Money Group and Kennedy Financial Services. If you have questions, you can email them to lifeplanning@kennedy-financial.com. Don't forget to learn how our sister company can assist you with all of your tax and consulting needs. You can find out more at briscoeandassociates.com. Be sure to tune in next week for more Life Planning 101. The opinions expressed herein are those of the firm and are subject to change without notice. The opinions referenced are as of the date of publication and are subject to change due to changes in the market or economic conditions and may not necessarily come to pass. Any opinions, projections, or forward-looking statements expressed herein are solely those of the author, may differ from the views or opinions expressed by other areas of the firm, and are only for general informational purposes as of the date indicated. Securities offered through Calton & Associates Incorporated, a registered investment advisor, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advisory services offered through Smart Money Group LLC. Kennedy Financial Services and Smart Money Group LLC are separate entities and are not owned or controlled by Calton & Associates Incorporated.